director myself. I just started a new company, 10 Hairy Legs. Yes. But this is about you, Sam, and the work today. And first off, I'd like to congratulate the choreographers. I thought it was a really stunning, beautifully danced, beautifully crafted afternoon. And something that's always very interesting to me, I read the bios, I saw the dance, and you know, one thing as a choreographer myself, I'm very reminded of Shostakovich. The last symphony he produced, and you know, after they had a talk back, and you know, the audience was like, well, "What were you trying to say? You know, what does all that mean?" And he said, "I just spoke to you for 3 hours. You know, I just spoke to you." So I'm not going to ask you that because I actually don't like that question myself. But I do actually like to know a little bit about each choreographer that I don't read in the program, and just you know, just tell me one or two things that, you know, maybe influenced you to be a dancer, choreographer, you know, just something that we don't know in this program that, you know, impacts you. It could be just that happened today, or, you know, something that happened 25 years ago, or anything. So why don't you start, Sam?
Well, I would say two things. One is that relating to Alvin and Ailey, here we are in their beautiful facility. It was actually going to see an Alvin and Ailey performance while I was in college that first inspired me to step into a modern dance class. And so there's that. And then I would say more recently, kind of like when I started getting into choreographing and also the idea of running a dance company, it had a lot to do with, I think, values that were instilled in me growing up here in New York City, going to a progressive grade school here in the city called Manhattan Country School, which really emphasized multiculturalism, community service, and kind of a sense of social action through work and through the way you live out your life. So those are two big influences for me.
Pedro?
Well, for me, I was lucky enough that I'm originally from Cuba, and in Cuba, back in the 1960s and 70s, there was big strong art education programs in the schools, and I was lucky that my teacher at the 3rd grade, she was a former ballet dancer, and she started with her group, with our group, to start creating dance. And one interesting thing that related in some way to tonight's performance is that one of the first things that I learned as a young boy was dance danzón. Danzón is a traditional Cuban dance from the 1920s, with a big, strong influence of European, for example, French. So you can see in the open body, they have the classical, and then the African influence in the part of the legs and hips and that was one of the first things that I started learning as a young boy, all the social dance. And then she wanted to be a little more ambitious, and she wanted for us to be a little more creative. And then she created for us the Peter and the Wolf, and so that was my first contact to do movement without being something that I was more related to the everyday life, and also exposed to classical music. And we went with this, we started competing between classes, and that was when a dancer from Ballet Nacional of Cuba saw me dance, and they called my father and said that boy had condition to be a dancer. So that's where the story began.
We use Chinese, and translator will help me to translate to English. 我的父母他们是国际标准的老师。
My parents are ballet dancers.
然后我在很小的时候，我很喜欢，我会变成一位舞者，很重要的一个原因是小时候在演讲比赛的时候抽到了一个题目，它叫做“我”。
The reason why I become a dancer is because I went to a speech contest, and I got the topic. The topic is art.
那个时候大概还12岁，
I was about 12 years old by then.
然后因为我很会说话，很喜欢跟人家比赛。
Because I'm pretty talkative and I love to compete with each other.
但是当我抽到那个题目的时候，我愣住，我不知道怎么回答。
But when I got this topic, I was astonished. I don't know how to do this speech.
然后我抽到那个题目，回到座位上坐下来，然后开始想我到底是什么。
When I got this topic, I went back to the seat. I started to think about what am I.
然后时间到了以后，我必须要上台，然后跟其他小朋友一样说，各位老师、各位同学大家好，我今天要演讲的题目是。
So when it's time for me to do my speech, I get on the stage. I did as other people did, like, good evening, judges. My topic is I.
我12岁，叫做黄奕。我有我的父母，然后我有一个妹妹。
My name is Huang Yi. I'm 12 years old. I have parents, and I have a little sister. That's it. Thank you. And then I cried and ran off the stage.
然后呢，我们家去跟我们父母演讲这件事情，然后他们就说你那么笨，为什么不讲？我的爸爸妈妈、我的家和我的妹妹。
When I went home crying, my parents were like, "Why are you so stupid? Why don't you just talk about your parents, your family?"
但是我跟他们说，这都不是我。
But I told them that's not me.
这个问题我放在我的心里面想了很久，一直到有一天我想到口尾调。
I kept this question in mind for so long until one day I realized that I can dance.
那是我做了这样的一个决定的。
And that is the moment that I decided to be a dancer.
Wow. It's a very interesting answers. Yeah, I had fun for that. Yeah. So there's a choreographer, Trisha Brown, who very famous, iconic modern choreographer who choreographs in cycles. That her pieces, they always progress 1, 2, or 3. She'll be in her music cycle, or then she'll be exploring something else. And I just would like to know from the choreographers, are they in a cycle? Did this piece come from something else, or was it just it's a new way of moving, or a new way to use music, or I'd just be interested to know a little bit about maybe not necessarily the process, but maybe the process as well. We can start at the end.
Every time when I choreograph, it's different.
然后会因为那个作品的属性，所以会决定是先概念先行还是动作先行。
Based on the feature, the characteristics of that production, it all depends on maybe sometimes I will start with the concept, sometimes I'll start with the movement.
因为有一些不同的作品是跟歌词有关，所以这个部分就变了。
And a lot of my productions, a lot of my works has been related to, be associated with technology. So everything is like very complicated in terms of technology and all things combining together in the works.
It's okay, a lot of people don't know who Trisha Brown is. It's fine, Yeah, she choreographs in cycles. That's very specifically her. So I was just wondering from each choreographer that, I know as a choreographer sometimes I purposely go against exactly what I just did before in the last piece. And I was just interested in hearing what that was.
这个作品也是，因为它 cycle 是
Okay, if there's a cycle, I would put it this way. First of all, I will have experiment. And the second one will be the choreography. And then I will go to the other one, which is research. And I will come back again to the experiment.
Pedro? Have you ever choreographed a dance like this before? Or is this a new kind of idea for you in movement, or using this music, or?
No at all. In this case, was something specific that was approached from Sam to me for a specific type of work that he needed.
And what was that specific work?
I think it was a work that we had to do with education, some programs on education that had to do with Latin. So he was looking for something Latin, and something that the piece was also, I think, one point was incorporated children. So it was something like that. That was the idea at the beginning of the work of that song. I am also very versatile choreographer, and I am as a dancer too. And I have the great opportunity to work with many different styles of choreographers and perform many different styles of dance. And all of that influenced so much in me. One of my first choreography was with Ballet Hispanico, where I danced for 21 years, principal dancer and also choreographer. And that piece was in some way related to my life, related with something that I can bring from my own culture, my own experience in life. And in this case was my work as a little boy in the field, in the countryside in Cuba. And going as 5 years old with my grandfather to the country and see the beginning of life, the waking up of the animals, and all that beautiful thing that you see in the countryside. But at the same time, later on, I didn't know that we had experience as a worker in Cuba at that time. As soon as you arrive to the 7th grade, they send you to the countryside to work for 45 days. And the only thing that you do in there is just working in the plantation. And this guy was tobacco, picking orange. So I became, in that case, a Guajiro myself. Guajiro is the people who live in the countryside. So I use all that images. When I work, I love image. I love to work with images. And then I love to work with, in some way, even in my work can be abstract in many ways, have always story behind. I think for me, to tell a story is very important in my work. Even if it's something that is about movement or whatever, I have to have something. And for me, it's structure, also as a writer. So it's very important. For me, it's like choreographing is like writing. So have to have a beginning, have to have a development, have to in some way a conclusion.
So Sam, you had two pieces on the program. Maybe you could actually address the second piece first, because I think the first piece you showed might have a different answer. So the piece with the sad scarabs, was that usual for you, or is that going to a new place for you, or mixture of all
Actually,
of it?
well, I'm like Pedro. I always start with some kind of structure, and the structure behind Scarabs was actually a collaboration that we did, again working with the Taipei Cultural Center. I think it was 3 years ago, 2010. We had a piece that was created and performed like Shadow Sound with dancers, with Taiwanese dancers and with U.S. dancers. This was a different company called Taipei Crossover Dance Company. And it was a piece called Butterfly Dream, which was based on a Chinese kind of parable about a man that dreams about becoming a butterfly. And he's not, when he wakes up, he's not sure if he was dreaming or if it's kind of so compelling a dream that he loses track of what is real and what isn't. And so originally for Scarabs, the idea was that this would be performed next to Butterfly Dream, and it would draw on more Western ideas about humans transforming into insects. So we started with the Kafka story called Metamorphosis, about a man who wakes up and has become a butterfly, a beetle, and is a very, claustrophobic story about this family. It's very depressing, and they eventually end up basically locking him in his room, and he dies, and the family goes off and has a picnic. So it was
Sounds like a happy story.
So it's a very different. It's a very different kind of tone than the Chinese parable, and we thought it was very interesting to have these two next to each other. So, and then there was also kind of this influence of Egyptian mythology about the scarab beetle, which was a symbol of rebirth. And so that was the starting kind of structure. It got much more abstract as we developed the piece, but it retained some of the ideas of these enclosed spaces and the things that, the strange sides of ourselves that we do in our room when nobody's looking, or those of you who live in an apartment building, sometimes you can look into other people's windows and see strange interactions in the neighboring apartment, and so kind of these glimpses or snapshots to alternate sides of people's lives.
So actually, why Lynchtown? Besides the fact that it's a masterpiece, there's lots of masterpieces. What drew you to that piece in particular? And then obviously you commentated. It was your version, whatever, influenced by that. But is this something you've been thinking about for a while, Lynchtown? You're like, oh yeah, I'd like to have that for my company, or why is it so?
It was really a series of circumstances. A lot of this somehow it seems, as I think you probably found running dance companies, that things
just present themselves.
Opportunities present themselves.
And then you go, oh, that's a good idea.
We were so lucky to first meet Pedro, and now he's such a close friend to the company, and it's been incredible. And then Huang Yi, the circumstances lined up that he could come and join us. So
it's a very small world. You have the worlds together, worlds apart. But yes, Pedro and I danced in a Nutcracker about 20 years ago. It's a very, very, very small world. But so why Lynchtown?
Well, it turns out that one of the board members of the Charles Weidman Dance Foundation lives in Jersey City, and he'd been coming to see our performances there. And we got to talking, and he reintroduced me to Lynchtown. And while our company doesn't really specialize in staging historic dance works. I spent enough time with Martha Graham that I wanted to leave that behind. But when I got to know the Lynchtown as a piece and its subject matter, not only was it such a powerful piece, but also I saw the ways that it could be used to introduce young generations of dancers to kind of traditional modern American modern dance, and also to I've always been very impressed with the way that those early modern dance choreographers took on real subject matter. They dealt with war and sexism and racism, and they didn't shy away from real topics. And I wanted to. I was inspired by that, and so it seemed like a great opportunity to stage Lynchtown. Margaret O'Sullivan, who worked with us and actually staged the ballet, the dance for us, is here. So
Margaret.
Give her a round of applause.
I heard you were fierce in rehearsals and demonstrated everything, and that's really just, no, it's amazing, and they dance beautifully.
We just perform Nimbus with Charles every single Sunday, aside from 2 outside performances. So, we actually have this Sunday for 6 years. The movement just stays in your body, so that's even though we used to complain to them, it actually helps him.
If you didn't hear her, she was talking about how movement stays in her body. And I know, I did a show in Atlantic City 27 years ago that I wish was out of my body, but it just stays in my body, and I just become a show boy, and I'm like, oh boy, get out of there. So I would actually like to take any questions from the audience for any of the choreographers. If you have anything you'd like to ask them, this is your time now. As I always say to my students, there's no stupid questions, just stupid answers. So if you have anything, yes, ma'am.
Would they like to say something about the costumes?
Would they like to say something about the costumes? Would you like to say anything about your costumes, Sam? Pedro?
Well, I would like, in my case, the costume to be in some way light color, like white or off-white, because that in some way was the color of the 1920s and 30s in Cuba, and have to do in some way research about what people would wear at that time. However, if you see it was color under the skirts, so that you see that even though outside we look very nice and clean, inside as a fashion.
That's the party, right?
Yes, exactly.
And for his piece, the costumes?
This time, I chose like simple way to present the costume.
华人的身体比较小，西方人的身体比较大。
What is very interesting is like we realize that for Asians we are more skinnier, and for Westerners bigger shape.
Except for sumo wrestlers.
找的袜子找不到女生的小好的袜子。
So when we were looking for the socks for the Asian female dancer, we could not find the best socks to fit our feet.
因为肤色的袜子真的很少。
Because the naked collar socks is really hard to get one.
昨天有一位来一个国家来看，然后他就发现了这一点，说哇，很轻松。
So yesterday when there's a Italian choreographer, he came to see the show and he noticed that, well, somehow her socks were a little bit loose.
I didn't notice, and I usually notice all things like that. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, the dancers in the company dance together so beautifully. I'm interested in whether they've been dancing together for what period of time.
Yeah, Sam, so talk about that. You have apprentices in the company, you have company members that have been for a while, and new company members, and yeah, how is that you do that? I mean, especially for a repertory program too, I think that's very challenging to have a repertory program with such diverse ranges of movement and styles, and then to find dancers that are suitable for your company.
Yeah, well, we try as much as possible to keep a consistent company because it saves us a lot of time and hardship to reteach roles over and over again with new dancers. So as much as, and also, of course, the longer that people dance together, the more of a rapport they have physically and a sense of trust and uniformity of how they approach movement. But yeah, we actually had quite a bit of turnover from last year to this year. So there was only, I think, in tonight's program, there's four of the dancers were with us last year, and out of a total of 10 company members and apprentices. But we again, this was actually the last performance of. We've been working together consistently for probably 3 months now. We have a big Jersey City Nutcracker production. Actually, also so far we have some of the Snyder High students perform it, and so we've been, we've been around each other all day for 5 days a week for about 3 months, and we traveled up to Vermont and stayed in a small little bunkhouse together. So they may not have known each other for years, but they know each other pretty well by now.
So are there any final words that you'd like to share with the audience before we go off to do what we're going to do? No? Well, I'd just like to say it was a really honor to watch your work, and I just really look forward. I've never seen your work before, and I really look forward to seeing more of it in the future. Will he be doing other projects in America that we can see his work?
In May, we will have a production.
从6月到12月，
And from June to December, I will stay in New York.
Great. Good for New York. And Pedro, anything you'd like to share with the audience before we depart?
No, I think it's been a wonderful experience to work with Nimbus company and see that they work. I thought that we were something for a specific, occasion, grew up and he's part of the repertoire. So I'm very happy with that.
And Stan, you should have the final word. You are the artistic director, and would you like to share with us?
No, just to say thank you very much for coming out, and please stay in touch. We're based in Jersey City, but we perform in New York. We're trying to do yearly seasons here in New York and continue to grow the company. So we love to stay in touch and have you get involved in any way you'd like.
They can sign up for mailing list on the website, yes?
That's right.
There
That's
you
right.
go.
And Facebook, our friend on Facebook.
All right, so let's thank our choreographers one more time, please. Thank you.
Thank you.